take a few minutes to kick this off. I am Alysia Reiner. I am the Director of Membership for Elevate. So I'm sure I know quite a few of you already, and I'm really happy to be here. Summer has been quite quiet for Elevate, if you've seen, so this is kind of our first big event back through the fall, so it's very exciting to have it with such a great panel that has a few of us tonight to talk about confidence. So I'm not going to take much of your time. I just wanted to let you know that we are a women's networking group. If you don't know Elevate, most of you I think are members, but if you're not, what we do is we really try to build a community of women who can help each other succeed. So it's about building a network you can lean on and learn from. And with that, we're hoping to learn a lot from our esteemed panelists here, who will introduce themselves. But I will first introduce Jennifer Kruger from Fidelity Investments. Fidelity is our sponsor today, and we're really thankful to them for hosting this event with us tonight. And Jennifer will say a few words, and then we'll pass it to Mandy, who is one of our great Elevate members and will be moderating this panel. She is an entrepreneur and a columnist for Inc. magazine, and most recently for Sports Illustrated. So very exciting to have her here as well. Jennifer, if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Kruger. I work at Fidelity Investments. I'm a manager of one of the branches over on Park Avenue. For those of you that don't know a lot about Fidelity, we help people with financial planning. So whether it be retirement planning, investment strategy, planning for income, planning for families, we talk to people about a lot of different financial planning topics. We're really excited to be here and to be a sponsor of this event. What an amazing topic, too. I think it's something that we can all use and continue to get better at and continue to have more of in our life. Fidelity is a great employer that really focuses on giving us the support, the mentoring, the information, the education to build the confidence so that we can continue to be successful women in a man's world. Very often we get the opportunity to have our voice heard, to have our ideas implemented, to stretch ourselves in areas, opportunities that we never thought we would do, get out of our comfort zone and try new things. I think back to my experience at Fidelity. I've been there for 10 years. I started as an advisor working across the table from clients. And I was a good advisor, right? I met with clients, I knew financial planning, I knew the products, I really could connect with clients, and I was really good. And one day I was approached by somebody else at Fidelity, and they tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, there's this new role, we really think you'd be good at it. It's a training role, so it's about taking your experience and training the people that are coming to Fidelity. And my very first instinct was, well, no, I can't do that. I'm an advisor. Like, I've never talked in front of people. This job is mostly talking in front of people and doing projects and making decisions. And I've been an advisor, and I was a good advisor. I was comfortable. But like, no, I can't do that. Like, what do they think of me? And I really had to take that step back. And I had to stop myself and say, well, why can't I do that? Why can't I take that step? Why can't I stretch myself? And with the resources and all that's there to support us, like, why can't we take that step and do things that we're not comfortable with? And my answer quickly turned to yes. And I'm so thankful that it did, because my career would look vastly different today if I didn't say yes 5 years ago. So I think it all goes back to starting with understanding your self-worth and understanding what value you bring to the table, and then frankly, it's just about saying yes. It's about stopping that voice in the back of your head saying, oh, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I should ask for that raise. I don't know if I should go for that promotion. Just get rid of that and say yes and go for it. And I don't think it's a learned skill. It's not something that I learned 5 years ago and I never had to think about. It's something we have to apply every single day and think about it in every interaction that we have. So, one of the best ways to get better at that is to be building information and getting tips from people that are really good at it. So I'm really excited myself to learn a lot of tips from a really impressive panel that we have here. So thank you all for being here, and thank you. Turn over to Mandy. Thank you, Jen. It was such a great story. Thank you.
So I'm going to echo Jen's comment that
confidence is such an amazing topic, right, to speak of and such a great panel to be part of. Truly, confidence is the one thing I think that women should put on as the first thing when we get up in the morning, maybe second only to lipstick, right? But it's debatable that lipstick actually instills confidence, right? So we're probably going to dispel that theory as we talk a little further. But I wanted to kick things off and share a little story as well. And this is something that had recently happened with my niece Morgan. My niece is 12. And if anybody knows the Antoniacci family, we are a big sports household. It is a big sports culture. I was raised with all older brothers, all of whom played sports. So did I. We all had scholarships. I grew up in Pennsylvania, so it is a big high school and college and professional sports state. Morgan's mother is a cheerleader. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's at conflict with how the Antoniacci family was raised. Morgan's father wants her to be a cheerleader and wants her to hold down the family legacy. And more often than not, she is found begging, bribing, pleading with Morgan to be a cheerleader. And Morgan doesn't want to do it. Morgan is a basketball player. She's an athlete, right? So finally she got to the point where last week, Morgan actually expressed herself. And she didn't say to her mother, I don't want to be a cheerleader. She didn't use the friend excuse and say, all of my friends are actually playing basketball. She said one sentence to her mom. And she said, I don't want to cheer for other people. I want other people to cheer for me. And I thought, man, Morgan's got confidence. I was like, woo, go Morgan. And of course, her mother looks at me like, this is your fault. Son, I will take the blame for that rebellion any day of the week. But the bigger notion is when we were Morgan's age, when we were 12, before we cared about what people thought, because we probably didn't know it yet, before we had the realization of financial pressures, family pressures, before we had expectations, right, to live up to, we had confidence. We have it. How many people in the room, show of hands, feel as though they are lacking the confidence to move forward in their professional or personal endeavors? Maybe you have a dream, a wish, you have a goal that you have yet to achieve. How many people are lacking confidence? Okay, keep your hands up.
Be confident in raising your hand.
That's right. Okay, so to that point, I'm going to say every single one of you have confidence because it does take confidence to admit that you don't have it. It takes confidence to raise your hand in a room full of strangers and admit a weakness. So on this wonderful panel today, we are going to discuss how to channel the confidence that you have, just like Morgan, how to channel what you have, and most importantly, where does it go when we need it most, right? Because that's the big debate. A couple of stats that elevated me, which I found to be interesting, is that KPMG Women's Leadership did a study, found that 67% of women said they needed more support building confidence to feel like they can be leaders. 73% lacked confidence to pursue a job opportunity beyond their experience. 65% lacked confidence to ask for a promotion. 61% lacked confidence to request a raise, and 56% to request a new role or job. So you are not alone, but after today, I promise you it's going to get better. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the panel, and if you all can introduce yourself, say what you do, maybe some of the goals and ambitions that you have, and how confidence has played a role in doing what it is you do.
How about now?
That's confidence.
Excuse me, can I ask a quick question? Is there any way for you guys to just either sit on the back of the couch?
Yeah,
or
That was my first question, actually. Can you see me? I have confidence to sit up here. Hi guys, I'm Alysia Reiner. I'm an actress, an activist, a producer, a maker, a mama, a wife, a daughter, a friend, and I have a lot of confidence in all of those areas now. And it's so interesting analyzing confidence, because I think it is one of those gestalt things that comes with experience. And I like to always think that as a mother of a 7-year-old, like, how would I describe it to my daughter? And we've just heard a small human story, so I'm not going to tell that story. But what I will say to you all is I was born a deeply, deeply shy human. I was the fat kid, I was teased mercilessly, and I can't tell you how deeply shy I was. And I went to the same school from the time I was in kindergarten to 12th grade. So even as I changed, the people around me saw me the same way. So when I went to college, one of the things that I did to learn confidence was I found the girl who was deeply confident and became her friend. And thank God she happened to think I was cool. She was Swiss and from Switzerland, and I was the quiet, dark, assertive girl from New York, and she really liked that. And I really learned from her, and I mirrored her. And then I found my husband quite shortly afterwards while I was still in college, and he was this gregarious, outgoing guy, and I feel like I watched him and mirrored him. And that worked pretty well. But then as I got into bigger and bigger rooms and my inner shy girl came out more and more, the one thing that I would say that has helped me more than anything in the confidence department that I would say to my daughter is to every person you meet, when you're feeling that shy, I don't have anything, think about what you can give as opposed to what you need. That gives me the most confidence ever. What do you need? How can I get out of me and think about how I can possibly help you? Because truly, in my life, that gives me more esteem than any award I've ever gotten or any role I ever thought I really wanted and got. How can I serve is the thing that really gives me the most esteem and confidence on a daily basis. So I'll bring it to you.
That was great. Thank you so much. I love your answer. And it's a big part of what drives my confidence as well. So who I am, I'm Claudia Chan. Hi everyone. I'll tell you a little bit about my background or what I do now. I am the CEO of She Global Media. It is a women's empowerment, education, and conference company. We create content, conferences, and curriculum to really teach a rise and lift mentality. And by that I mean that I believe that we're all born onto, by we right now, I'm referring to women, we're all born onto this earth and planet with this limitless, ridiculous amount of potential and purpose. And it's really our job in life to realize what that potential is and purpose and take steps towards that. But at the same time, as we rise towards that, it's important that we also lift other women as we go along, right? So really, my conferences in the education that I take to corporations, my upcoming She Summit, many of you might know it because I know we've done a lot of Elevate in the past. It is thousands of women come and it is, that's the entire agenda. Everything we do is really teach this rise and lift mentality. And I also believe too that how we get to realize what we're meant to be and how we're going to make change for others is really taught through struggle in many ways. It's the struggles and it's the pain and it's the no's and the rejections or the failures or the mistakes that we make, the adversity, the trials that really teach us the most and actually what we get through because tease us mostly, but also teaches us confidence, right? Because no matter what, you've got to get through it. But that's what I do today, and I would say that what confidence, today I was going to say to me, it's not even about confidence, it's about how do you have relentless courage, right? How do we, because again, we're all born with this ridiculous amount of potential, and how do we have the courage to actually realize that and take action towards that? And then when you think big on that level, confidence becomes sort of a walk in the park, right? And I think that that's something that women, we need to work on how to do that more, how to realize just like the greatness and the vastness that we are. I think a lot of this too is, what Alysia said about, focusing on the me, and it's a huge point, because I think we often get insecure when we get afraid, whether or not I just posted that on social media, what if I don't get enough likes on it or something, or what if I do this and people are gonna think I'm crazy or stupid, or I'm gonna ask for that promotion, or I'm gonna ask for that thing that I really want, but it's just ridiculous, who am I to do that, right? But for a lot of that, what is that rooted in, right? What is that rooted in? And if you're rooted in popularity and what you care about what people think about you, and you're rooted in, how much money, what if I lose this amount of money, or then you're making it about you, as Alysia was saying. And so, it is, if you're focused on the bigger reason on why you're doing something, and why you truly want something, and you're driven by that, you're driven by that service or that greater good, then you all of a sudden do become more confident. So take the focus away from you. I think always ask yourself, why am I afraid? What am I really afraid of if I do this? And the worst thing that can happen to you is a trial, a mistake, a struggle. And guess what? That's only going to build you more, and build your resilience muscles, and your learning muscles, and your courage muscles, and your bounce back muscles, and it's just going to build your confidence. So it's really a no-lose. It's only a win-win. But we need to shift our mentality of what we believe our potential is, and really ask ourselves, what are we truly rooted in, and what's driving our fear.
What badass women, right? I'm Julia Landauer. I'm 24 years old. I'm a NASCAR driver. I grew up in New York City. And then, when I was 10, I only realized how lucky I was now, was that my parents got me and my sister go-karting about 2 hours outside the city, so that we could be a family and drive somebody together on the weekend. But they also really wanted their girls to compete against boys. Their rationale being they're going to have to compete against boys in the real world, so why not them start young? I fell in love with it. I pursued it ever since. I did also, when I graduated from high school, I'm going to go to Stanford University, and got a Bachelor of Science. And after I graduated from there, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, because it's NASCAR country, and I'm racing in a televised NASCAR series this year. And I think my story here is going to be a little bit different than these ladies. Looking back on my confidence growing up in middle school and high school, I was a really cocky little kid, right? Oldest kid in the family, all that. But then when I was about in 4th grade, my best friend since the beginning of time didn't want to be my best friend anymore. And she was my only friend, so it was really traumatizing and made me extremely insecure. And so I was going to 5th grade without that best friend, which is rough, middle school for a girl. And I realized that I took that time to really invest in myself. So I completely agree with doing things for other people, but I also found incredible importance in really doing things for myself to make sure that I then, wasn't as dependent on someone else as I clearly was at that point. And it took many years. Middle school was not pleasant, but then once I started racing cars, there was this outlet to be able to just perform at the absolute edge. I could be as aggressive as I wanted. It wasn't being, this little bitchy kid. It was just this really great outlet. And so for me, what I've been working on as I try to have some kind of public life on male-dominated testosterone-driven sport is how do we tackle fear? And I think fear and confidence kind of work hand in hand with each other. And I've done a lot of research recently, and so I'm excited to go to the panel and see more of what you guys have to say, and to really address, it's okay to be scared, and just how do we push past that to really maximize what we're capable of, because we're all awesome and badass and have incredible DNA in our system, so might as well use it, right?
Nice job. As someone I have to say who is a purveyor of storytelling, there are so many rich narratives, and just the introduction, I almost dove into literature. So thank you for the introductions and for truly blowing my mind. Let's stay on the topic of the male testosterone-dominated place, because we touched on men quite a bit, and Alysia mentioned that she actually found a wonderful mentor of confidence in her husband, and Julia, you had to brace against the men, right? So notoriously, statistically, it's shown that men have more confidence than women, right? Men have an easier time calling themselves an expert in their field versus women. Do you all see that in your particular industries? Do you think men are more confident? And tell us after the laughter why you think this is so.
I mean, I can't just say duh. Should we? Okay, well, so, it's my, who has seen Equity, the movie that I produced? Okay. Go see it, all of you, please. But I only ask because there's a scene between a man and a woman in the movie where the woman says, like, you don't think about these things afterwards over and over again, do you? You don't like run it over and over and over again in your head. And he's like, no, don't. And that's like it. Like, men don't do that. They don't run the shit in their head over and over and over again. Then later in the conversation, he's like, well, it's so much more fun. He's British in the movie. It's so much more fun to blame somebody else. And that's really interesting to me. I am not saying blame somebody else. I'm saying don't run the shit in your head. That's all I'm saying. I was at a UN event this afternoon, and they were talking about human potential as a renewable resource, which I love the expression of that. And for me, get back uppiness, which is a phrase that I've actually copyrighted, is a renewable resource. And that's what we need to learn. Brushing this shit off and get back uppiness. I talk about it a lot in interviews about shedding your baggage, not hanging out with all the baggage you've had from your lifetime. Really learn from your past, shed it, and move on. And I think it's a muscle, and I think men are intrinsically, biologically, if you read the human brain, the female brain, which is a great, entertaining, sciencey book that's out right now that I just did a movie, I'm in a movie that's based on, it's a great description of how men and women are biologically different in this way. It's really a huge muscle that we have to teach ourselves, is how do we let go of our baggage, stop thinking about it, find your tools to help you stop thinking about things. Service is a great one, as I spoke about earlier. Yoga, kickboxing, find a way out of your head and think about solutions instead of what you did wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in terms of women, I definitely think that it is a fact that men do have more confidence in women, but in many ways, though, I sometimes like to think that men are just more one-dimensional. They're more simple, but I do think you mentioned biological. I think feminine traits and masculine traits are sort of different, but they're very different, right? I mean, we're emotional, we're vulnerable, we're transparent, and our empathy, these are all feminine traits, and these traits make us, they force us to really think about things and really think through and how we feel about something, and I think, sometimes also that can, and in many ways, like authenticity, right? These are all traits that women have, and also, it's just what we're prone to, and so, I think often, that time that we need to digest something can come across or turn into lack of confidence. But so it's just one thing to be aware of that you know, I was just saying, like, you know, there's a women's revolution happening, but it's not an external one, it's also happening in your head. So just know that you're up against that genetically. You're wired to actually think about those things more, right? The inner self-talk, inner critic, I think we call it the annoying neighbor or roommate, the annoying roommate. So you're just naturally up against that. So just know that. And what we talked about with tools, like some of the tools like, and I think honestly having a life coach or having, and again, coaching and mentorship, whether or not you can or can't afford to hire a life coach, you can also, you know, read your favorite authors, like, you know, Tony Robbins has great stuff, or, you know, if you're more spiritual and more practical and corporate, there's tons of coaches and authors, right? Everybody's building their personal brands there, coaching somebody. So, but some of the tools that I was taught, you know, was like, for example, pre-painting, you know, or like a Sunday exercise I used to do, and I still do it on occasion when I need it, is to celebrate my successes of the week. It's Sunday, and it's you know, here are the 10 things, because we always focus on what we didn't get done or what we weren't good at this week, versus really celebrating and feeling like rock stars. So you can celebrate your successes, your achievements, what you learned. But anyway, so there's lots of tools out there. But to answer the question back to women and men, I think also that, you know, there was that Harvard Business School study that showed when, you know, men and women applying for jobs, and that women, you know, whereas guys really just needed to, you know, it was like 60% of the skill or talent involved in the job, you know, but women had to check on 100%. Like in order to apply for the job, they had to literally know, you know, feel like they were confident in 100% of the skills. And so, again, there's this research out there. We do have the pressure to be perfect. We are naturally more, you know, more internal with our thoughts. And so it's really important that not only do we proactively manage around that and build the muscles and the tools, practical tools that work for you. I like to meditate every morning and just get rooted in what matters and like what matters today and what is my intention and my character today that I'm going to be like in front of my team that I manage, in front of, you know, partners and clients that I talk to, in front of what I write, what content I write, you know, like I get intentional about, you know, who I am. And, you know, so I think that we have to pause and we need to be very strategic about managing our minds and managing our, you know, and the actions and the intentions that we're gonna take. We have to work harder than that than men. And then, yeah, I think that's, you know, that's sort of just know what you're up against that. Oh, the last thing I wanted to say was, the reason why we also lack the confidence too is because, you know, we're in an era right now where when we were like little girls, right, who were our role models? Like, you know, like, and you know, Cinderella, you know, I mean, you know, Davis is doing a lot of great work in changing, you know, female protagonists or having more female protagonist roles and heroes and super, you know, rock stars or, you know, and content, but really, you know, we lack role models growing up in this generation. We were taught to be pretty and skinny and look like Britney Spears or whatever, you know, I mean, so it's just, we don't have the role models, so it's all of our responsibility to actually, you know, really be intentional and cognizant about, you know, how are we, you know, if you're surrounded by young women or peers in your workplace or whatever, like how can we be role models and teach confidence, you know, to the people around us, because we have a responsibility, right? So we need to expose ourselves to more role models and the right role models, and we also need to be them as well.
And really, you have to compete specifically against men, right? So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that, and have you seen a difference in the confidence in men versus women in your field?
Right. I feel really lucky that racing involves stopwatch, which doesn't fly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm either faster or I'm not. If I'm not, I gotta fix it, and if I am, then I'm awesome. And so having that very rational backup and like confirming that I was either good or bad really helped. And so I try to apply that into every other component of life. It's like, how can I be as rational about this as possible? And it goes back to not thinking over and over again. Analyze something. If you can do better, you know, be humble enough to admit that, and then try to figure out what you have to do to get better. And I take a very pragmatic approach to most of what I do, so it's easier for me. But if I can root it in fact, that's really, really important. And in terms of the confidence, yeah, I mean, the guys are really cocky, but I have to be perfectly honest, so am I. And I think this idea of, like, I say inner cockiness, you might not like the word cockiness, but But if it's to yourself, it really doesn't matter, right? No one's gonna be able to hear that, no one's gonna be able to judge you on that. So if you need to be the biggest cheerleader for yourself out there, go for it. I mean, try not to project that on people because it tends to make people not like you as much. But I think it's really important, and I have found in my industry, which clearly, like, they want a woman to succeed in racing, but want a pretty surface level of work. And so no one is gonna advocate for me the way I'm advocating for myself. So again, routine and facts, and just really trying to go after, just, you know, if you've done something well, again, little victories are so important. I mean, especially if your goal is somewhat bigger or harder to attain or delayed gratification, you really need to emphasize those little victories.
It's so interesting because her culture is in this very testosterone-driven
Oh,
culture.
it's
So
awful.
her keeping up against with male confidence is so different than maybe what we might experience. So that's also important to keep in the context as
But
well.
on the flip side also, because they are so confident, I almost feel like an outsider if I don't exhibit that same stuff. And so kind of the fake it till you make it deal, I mean, really comes into play because everyone knows that you don't feel confident at the racetrack. You see it just in your body language and how you walk around. And so I think being aware of that is really important as well.
What's interesting is that Julia mentioned the word cocky, right? And I was going to pick on that word earlier because I'm sure a lot of you sitting here are in a corporate setting and you think, if I walk in tomorrow morning and I just start getting cocky, guns a-blazing, okay, shit's gonna go down, right? This is not a good scene for me, right? So I actually authored a piece which described the difference between confidence and cocky. My description of that is confidence is the mindset that you have what it takes to get to the top. Cocky is the belief that you're already there, right? And there's a difference between the two. In your industry, Julia, clearly taking a cocky approach, at least an insular cocky approach, works for you. Do you all prescribe to that notion? Do you see a difference between confidence and cocky? How do you channel either one?
If that's your definition of those two, it's my experience that confidence is obviously fantastic, and cockiness can work if it's authentic, but if you've never acted before and you're doing a scene with Meryl Streep and you act like, hey, I'm already there, I don't think that's going to be the best strategy for you. So it's, you know, as Claudia was saying, it's a very case-by-case basis. For me, it's very much who I'm, like, really assessing the situation. And also what we were talking about, like, the internal voice versus the external voice. I could use more internal cockiness. Like, I don't have that naturally. My natural set point is like, oh my God, I'm not good enough. So I have to work on the muscle of the internal, I'm good. For me, it doesn't feel authentic to tell you, I'm good. That feels like acting. So that's why my strategy is, how can I help you? Because that makes me feel good. And I think you know, the thesis of what that little paragraph was, you do you, and find those things that make your heart sing. Find your weaknesses and build those muscles, and then find the things that make you feel really good about yourself. And do those things, because they will bring you confidence. It might be how you are with your puppy dog. And if you feel like, oh my God, I'm such a good mom to my puppy dog, maybe you go be of service at the ASPCA once a week, because that then brings you more confidence. Because you're like, you know what? I am so good at this. And then I feel like that marinates into your whole life and being.
I think that's the circle, but I think that's so important that, like, knowing your inner values and being able to trust what your gut says on, like, what works for you and what doesn't. And if that kind of introspection and retrospection, I think, needs to be done regularly. Like, you know, constantly going back and saying, okay, well, is this true to my core? Is this what's really going to make me tick in a good way? And value and, you know, your own morals that you live by are really all you can rely on at the end of the day. And so you have a really strong sense of that, and just developing it and working towards it is so important to your point.
What are you rooted in? Yeah. So, you ready? Stick up, is it up? It's on, yeah. Hello? Good? So, you know, what's interesting too is like, you know, just in terms of like, to me, the definition of confidence too, back to the internal versus external, like we need to define confidence as internal confidence, period. Because really what we externalize is ultimately what we truly feel inside. And so, you know, I think that, and what you just mentioned too about value system, it's everything, because it's like back to what I said earlier, what are you rooted in? So, you know, I sort of live my life in here's my, you know, I have clarity, at 41, I have clarity on my purpose and at least the very general direction of what I'm here for. Beyond like, you know, my family and my health and our well-being, like for the greater society, like what is my true purpose on this planet and why? And I believe that everything that happens, every struggle, every great thing, every gift, every talent you were born with has literally happened for you and not to you, so that you can figure out more of who you're meant to be. And it's taught me what values I want to live by and be rooted in. And so this is my internal strategy, my internal foundation, my internal system in which I engage the world, in which I engage my work, how I want to be around people, how I want to manage my money, where do I want to invest my time and my energy. And so, you know, I would just say, like, if you work in business and you think you're creating a strategy for something, you need to have that kind of internal strategy for your life and that internal foundation. And that is what gives you that internal confidence. Like, who cares at the end of the day, you know, what people think of you? It's about what you think of yourself. And truly, when you're rooted in that area, you know, in that internal foundation, those deep roots, like anything can come by and blow you, and like you'll still stay rooted. So to me, it's an internal thing, and we all need. I'm working on a book right now that's all around rise and lift, and it's also about. I think we also as women need to use bigger words. So it's all about, you know, why women can and must lead. And I know every single one of you have this like desire or itch, like that, like, you know, what is my passion and purpose in my life? Like, what is my, you know, and the thing is, like, that feeling is the world literally like pulling you and planting seeds in you to literally wanting you to step up to be the leader that you're meant to be. Like, we're all meant to be leaders. We're all meant to be change makers. We're all meant to be extraordinary. And but we have to believe in that. And so, yeah, I mean, I could just rant on about this. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but that internal stuff is really key.
I think, you know, some of the things that we touched upon here too, it reminds me of, there's a saying that my mom always said. My mom was the first woman to graduate from an all-male university, and women were only allowed to go in the evening. And, you know, I often, you know, just throughout the course of business and life, I would ask her, did you ever have to act like a man? Did you ever feel you had to act differently? And there's such a wonderful saying that either, I don't know if she created it or if she just regurgitated this, but a woman that acts like a man is a waste of a woman, right? And I've always prescribed to that. I thought that's a beautiful notion. Did you all ever, in an effort to channel confidence, feel like you had to act like someone other than yourself? Clearly you're an actress, so I would say daily. But in terms of just, you know, accomplishing your own personal goals, Alysia, did you ever feel like you were playing the role of someone else to get that done in an unhealthy way?
No. I think I always sort of intrinsically knew that would not serve me. That fake it till you make it is great on that sort of external level, but on a deep internal level, you've got to do the work and root yourself in who you are and work those muscles and explore that stuff and sort of dredge up the yucky stuff that's keeping you not feeling confident and like work through that, toss it out, and then like really work on the muscles of that feed your confidence. But I always, on a deep level, knew that you can't fake that on an internal level. It's really impossible.
I love that you refer to confidence as a muscle too, because so much of even just as someone who studied mental training in athletes, our brain isn't a muscle, but we can train it to act like one. It actually tells our bodies what to do. So I love the fact you're actually calling confidence a muscle, because it implies it's something that we have to consistently work at.
And I like to talk science a lot, as you may have noticed. And our brain made of neural nets. What we think about whenever we think more, those neurons grow thicker. It really is like a muscle. It's like it grows thicker when you think less about something. The neurons grow thinner, so that's why you can forget a word if you haven't. You can forget someone's name if you haven't seen them for a while. But if you see them every day in the office, you'll never forget their name because that neuron is thick. So it is in fact biological. If you practice these things, your brain will more quickly go bigger. It's just biological.
And to your question of the acting like a man, from personal experience that I'll share with you, I would almost be careful about how you do that because obviously the assertion of the guy may or may not be perceived the same way. And for example, so my team has made a handful of mistakes this year with the car, and one of them was really unacceptable and dangerous in terms of something falling off the car. I was talking to my driver coach, who has a great relationship with my team owner, and I said, this is unacceptable. And he said, yeah, you need to tell the team owner that. So I told the team owner that this was unacceptable. Again, very dangerous. It was a huge fine, like everything. And I said it's unacceptable at this point. And he told me to stop being a bitch about it and figure out how I can help. So what I had just discussed with my driver coach that he was able to talk about, I could not. And this is a specific guy, obviously, but it is important to be aware that the words you choose and the tone you take that may work with a male counterpart, or may work for a male counterpart, may or may not work for you. And it's a terribly unfair reality. But if you can, I feel at this point like I kind of try to make my point, or I can unfortunately figure out another way to address the situation that plays into the biases and unfair nature of this sport with these guys and really working to their advantage. So I just caution the being like a man that doesn't always work.
Yeah, and I think that in terms of, I haven't experienced it either, but I will sort of shift reframe the question though, and the concept, which is, the people that, how do we leverage the people that we're surrounded with? And I would say we become the company we keep. And by company, I mean, again, not just the people you're hanging out with, but the events that you're going to, the books that you're reading, the movies that you're watching, the television that you're watching. Like literally, we are learning, like who you surround yourself is truly, like subconsciously it's teaching you, right? It's, if you're hanging out with a group of people and these are their traits, you're gonna start adopting those traits. And so be really, our biggest role models in life, as I mentioned earlier, that we all individually have a responsibility to be conscious about how we're projecting our energy and our words in our space to be a positive influence on other women and other people. But you have to be really strategic about, who you surround yourself with. And when I ran a company called Shecky's for 10 years when I was 25 to 35 years old. That was a whole journey. But ultimately, I became, I was like 23, so young when I started the business, and towards the end, I had a very toxic relationship with a business partner, and it was around negativity all the time. And I had like my dark years, those last few years, but then in order to get out of it, and I started having the vision for this women's empowerment platform that I would build, but I literally was so conscious about, whether it was my yoga immersions, to the books, Stephen Covey, I read like every leadership, purpose-driven book out there. I go to church on Sundays. I read scripture to like blogs and whatever it is, right? Like everybody has their thing that works for you. Like I'm very rooted in spirituality, but just be really conscious of and so protective and strategic and intentional about the people and the individuals and the content that you are exposing yourself to. Because you are, you can't be what you can't see, right? So what you see is what you think it impacts you. And the other thing about energy, another big topic around confidence is, what you were saying earlier, which is we get what we focus on, right? So if you have, financial scarcity, for example, or you feel like your voice isn't strong, the more you focus on that, the more you actually manifest that reality. So, and that is biologically, you just give the scientific explanation. It truly, whether it's in scripture or Tony Robbins or Stephen Covey or Oprah, like literally everything out there is whatever type of voice you like to read or consume, you get what you focus on. And so, those mantras, like the repetitive, the muscles, right? Mantras every morning. Like if you have financial scarcity, every morning you should be having a mantra and praying, or having your phone app or something telling you a message. That I am financially abundant and I'm going to right? But you have to talk back to your core limiting beliefs and know what your core limiting beliefs are. Again, back to what are you rooted in? Why are you afraid? Figure out where your core limiting beliefs are. We all have like 2 or 3 key core limiting beliefs, and they're usually rooted in our childhood, or our parents parented us. They're rooted like somebody broke our hearts, somebody hurt us. It's rooted in something. So figure out what that core limiting belief is rooted in. Know that that's your enemy. Cross that out. Write the opposite. Put that mantra into your phone. Those are your tools. Those are your mantras. And literally, that's your internal foundation. And then, just make sure you're surrounded with the right people that will continue to lift you and push you up.
That's actually a perfect segue. So Claudia references the dark days, dark years, right? Some of us have dark decades, right? Okay, but those years, right? Fear is truly an antagonist of confidence in what we're talking about, right? So I'm sure when you were signing up for this, this presentation and this talk, you read the bios of the panel and thought, okay, sweet Lord, what kind of insecurities could these women actually have? Because realistically, we're going to go home, we're going to put our head on our pillows, you all have to go to work tomorrow, and that antagonist of confidence is going to creep up, and it creeps up at the most inopportune time. It starts to chip away every single learning and tip that we took out from this discussion today, right? So, in the circle of trust, ladies, can you indulge? What are your insecurities, or what is your antagonist of confidence? And what are some of the things, whether it's a mantra, like Claudia mentioned, what is something you do to suppress that at the time that you need it most? Julie.
Not making it is a huge insecurity. They're 40 NASCAR drivers, so chances are slim. But, I've been working with them for 14 years, and I'm sure many of you have been working at what you're doing for a very long time, and put a lot of money into it, a lot of energy. Not making it is terrifying. And making it would be like on a professional level and getting paid millions of dollars and everything, like the whole shebang. And part of what I have found really helpful is self-talk. And Claudia was just talking a lot about that, but this idea that we say so many things to ourselves throughout the day, and if you're trying to build confidence in one area, you really need to supplement that with confidence in other areas. So whether that's what you say to yourself when you walk past the mirror, or before presentation, you can take the approach, I'm about to go make my point, this is awesome, I'm going to go rock some worlds here, or oh my goodness, I'm getting in front of an audience, like, what if I say something that they don't agree with? Like, you don't need to say that. And the really great example is from the Olympics, right? So Lori Hernandez, they have a video of her, and they slowed it down, and you see her whispering to herself, you got this. And she said it to herself, and she's like that positive self-talk, and killed it on the meme. So it's just so important, and, again, it goes back to being a cheerleader, right? And I feel like you have to pay attention to your self-talk really carefully if you're not used to it, and really analyze what you're saying and try to cut out the negative. I'm not saying lie to yourself, unless that's helpful for you, in which case, go for it. But just cut out the negative, make it a neutral to neutral positive experience, not judging yourself in a way that's hurting you, especially because you don't know if that's not rational, don't do it. So self-talk, really important. Everyone has a lot of insecurity. That's as cocky as I say I am confident. Like, there's a lot of little stuff, and you address it. I think the question I ask myself is, why not? If something scares me, or if I'm not confident about it, why am I not? Why wouldn't I try it? If I can't find a good answer rooted in my beliefs, then I don't have an excuse not to pursue it.
I guess for me at this point, so I have a 15-month-old at home right now who's teething, by the way, and I bring that up for a reason, and got another one on the way. And I would say, at this point in my life at 41, I'm just so clear on my vocation and my purpose. And I've been an entrepreneur since I was 23, 24 years old, and so my business and my career has always been my baby. It's always been my obsession, and even to this day, people are like, how are you doing everything that you're doing? And and I have a book, and I've got a conference coming up, and all this stuff happening, and with motherhood. And I was like, well, I love what I do. Like, it's like my passion. And I wake up every day. It's my vulnerability or my insecurity, I guess. If I have the worst, like my biggest fear around something, it's around, am I being a good enough mother to my child? Because I wake up every day sort of thinking about my work and what I need to get done today. And Jackson is, he's just a baby, and I have an au pair, and I have all the childcare, and I'm literally like, I'm with him, I work from home, so it's great, so I'm able to like be with him, and I'm doing everything I need to be doing, right? And I'm with him, and then I've also got really good childcare in place, so, but I think that's because I focus so much of my life force on who I am and my identity and this bigger purpose or work, my organization. I do think, okay, am I not spending enough time researching what baby recipes to be cooking him, and should he be having goat's milk really instead of like whole cow's milk? Like, it's any moms in this room, I know that you're out there, right? I mean, I don't know if any of you have, I know one of you just had a baby 2 months ago. So it is, and I think it's a challenge that, so it's interesting, like I would say like that's the area of my life where like, am I doing enough? Am I making sure that he's absolutely 1,000% loved and cared for? And so that's probably the thing in my life where, and I'm new to it. I've never been a mother before. And so it's something that, and every stage they change, right? So that would be my answer.
I still know that. And I'll say, I have one of my deepest feelings of confidence is that I am a working mom, and I work really hard, and I work long hours, and I work a lot. And I have a really beautiful relationship with my daughter. And that is one of the things I'm most proud of, is like that balance, which I hate that word balance, I hate that word juggling. I'm like, it's also annoying, but it's like one of my biggest moments. I think whenever you're an actor and you love to act, and acting is something that yes, I produced this movie and gave myself a job, but most of the time you can't give yourself a job. There's many days where you're like, oh my God, I'm never gonna work again. It's just the truth of being in that career. And it's funny, it happened this week, and I guess it was like Monday, and I really root myself also in very sort of spiritual traditions, and I did some reading, I did some writing, and I was listening to an amazing podcast by Tara Brach, who is a Buddhist, and she has beautiful and spectacular things to say. And what she reminded me of is to go like, okay, what's the fear behind that? Like, what's going like behind it and behind it and behind it? And for me, it was like, what's my purpose? What we were saying, like, why am I even on this planet when I'm useless? And so I had to go to myself, like, you know what? If I never get an acting job ever again, that's okay. And once I took a deep breath into that, I was like, oh, it's gonna be okay. And then of course, 24 hours later, I found out all the TV shows that I'm on and just got picked up for a second season and Orange call for another episode. And it's like, okay, I have some jobs coming up, okay. And the other little tiny tip that I'll give that is an acting tip, but I find useful for when I'm coaching business people. There's 4 letters, which is BDLV, and when you're about to walk into something, you feel like you don't have any confidence and you're nervous, the first B is breathe. Take a deep breath. The second B is body. Check in with your body, see where you're holding tension, where, like, just be present with your body. The third L is listen. Start listening. If you don't stop it, start listening to music. You can hear a buzz with the computer, whatever it is. Listen. And the fourth thing is I'm back. And that means like when you realize when you checked out, when you're like in your head, when you're like beating up on yourself, whatever, and you go, I'm back. BBLB, not mine. Amazing acting coach named Josh Heiss. Learn from him as well. But it really helps ground me when I'm feeling a little, oh my God.
Well, I was actually doing that as you were going through the letters. So I was very resonated because I'm me. You also reaffirmed my positioning, which is I never met a Monday that I like. So the fact that this happened to you on a Monday, it's not surprising, right? So I am sure that all of you have a ton of questions. What we'd like to do now is open it up to questions for the panel. And do you need any more microphones or?
Yeah, I can hear it.
My question's for Alysia, but I just want to say to you as a mother of a 24-year-old that you had some kick-ass parenting. Thank you. I have the kind of confidence at your age. So my question to you, and this is sort of more, maybe it's not necessarily 100% related, but why is it that people who are actors that are famous always say they were shy? Like, how did you as a shy person audition for something?
They're acting.
So,
I don't know the answer to that. I will say two things. One is, I think for us shy, like deeply shy folk, you put on, it's what we were talking about earlier about sort of false confidence, like you put on the persona of another person and it's outrageously freeing and juicy and delicious, and you get to sort of dive in and explore areas of yourself that you might be afraid to explore. I think when you're little, you don't realize that in an intellectual way, but I think as a small human, that's why it's interesting. That's why shy kids can feel really comfortable in that arena, because it's not them, and they get to try on these other people. So that's the only, but I'd be really curious for like a psychologist who's like, I'm sure there's some studies, and I want to know the answer.
That's a great question though. You know, so many people who hear public speaking find themselves in their craft in improv, right? So there has to be some psychological connection there. Maybe it's a mask that they feel they wear, you know? This isn't me, this is, I actually have something, like this amorphous thing to point at and blame if something goes wrong, right? It's not me, it's my character. That's a good question. Anyone else?
And to this day, it's a lot easier for me to play somebody else in front of the camera than, you know, like today I was on a red carpet and then you're live and they're asking you a question and I'm like, hey, give me your life, I'm gonna give you your life.
So that's a really good point though that we can all relate to, because how many people have an easy time talking about something other than themselves? Right? Like, all of a sudden somebody says, so tell me about yourself, or, you know, give me your bio, what do you do? And we fumble. It's one of the most difficult things I find to do, right? Tell me a story about anything, but tell me the story of me. And it's like,
And here's another confidence tip. As an actor, when you're not working, which I wasn't, you know, early in my life, people would be like, so what do you do? What are you doing now? And as a shy person, I hated that question, and I wouldn't know what to say. And what I did was I wrote a script for myself. It's like writing an affirmation. I wrote a script that made me feel confident and made me feel esteemable, because I tried things like, oh, I'm a struggling actor, and that did not feel good. Or I'm a model, but I'm hoping to be an actress, did not feel good. And so I wrote a script for myself that was basically a little irreverent, a little funny. I would mention something that I had done, and then I would be like, and how about you? And I turn it over to them. And I've done that throughout my whole life to this day about, anything that makes me uncomfortable to talk about. If I get hit by a question, I'll go home and be like, okay, I need a script for that question so that the next time it's asked, I have the answer that feels confident and feels esteemable to me, that makes me feel good and you feel good. Because either I end up feeling crappy, like, oh, I just insulted myself, or sometimes I'll get defensive and I'll say something, God, I haven't done this in a long time, but I would say something like a little sharp, because I'm feeling not good enough, so I'll be like, because I'm feeling not confident.
It's like you're kind of creating your reality almost, yeah, really cool.
One common theme is that it's just, again, it's like it takes work, like figure out what you knew that was something that, like we last what you do, so you did that exercise and that's the work, right? That's a strategy. Know what you need. And like it's not like we're born with confidence, right? And confidence is a muscle, visioning is a muscle, perseverance is a muscle, everything is a muscle. It's like working out, right? If you stop working out, you're not going to stay in shape. So like everything is a constant exercise. Don't just think that you're born like why am I not confident right now? Like you have to work on stuff. Build your strategies.
We have a question in the back.
Hi, very quickly, you haven't watched the movie because you have to go bring your girlfriend. It's a really good movie, and also it was founded by women in New York. So the founding for the movie came from New York, so you guys gotta go and watch it with your girlfriend. Quickly, what did you tell to the guy or they always talking of this and kind of like because I don't think that guy would have said that to another guy.
Oh, hands down, no. No, not at all. And calling a name to a male counterpart is very different than calling a name to a female. I walked away. I was, not only was I pissed off my car was broken because of this thing that happened, but, I was treated that way as supposed to be his team member. So I walked away and then we came back and talked later and I just said right up front, hey, Bill, I did not appreciate you calling me a bitch. And I made it very clear. It wasn't I didn't appreciate what you said. I put it in his face again. I did not appreciate you calling me a bitch. And then he came back to me the next morning and was like, I want to apologize again because my daughter's 23 and I don't know what I would have done if someone had said that to her. But I needed to throw it right back in his face. And our relationship is not perfect. But I wasn't willing to let him get away with that because it was so jarring for me. And I also didn't want to be the whiny wimpy girl who could take it, but it needs to get thrown back in his face. And that's not going to work with everyone. I knew that with him, it was okay to be very pragmatic and say, this was not cool, I don't appreciate this. And that's where you just gotta play into the strengths and weaknesses. I bring sponsorship to the table, therefore I'm a paying customer, and he said that to a paying customer. So you gotta analyze the situation, but that's what I said.
I just want to comment too on, I was going to say this earlier about just when you were asking about whether or not guys are more confident than women, and when you think about like that very traditional sort of testosterone, like guy personality, there's obviously all kinds of men out there, and different masculine energies, but like again, back to like those guys that say those types of things, like what is their inner confidence really like, right? I mean, like this is what, come on, we're really intelligent as women, and we need to think about why are they saying things like that? And so when I find that people are obnoxious to me or just do things, usually, I would say bless them, wish the best for them, because like they obviously internally are really insecure. They lack something or they're scared. Usually defensiveness, insults, all that just comes from, a really, like there's some messy stuff inside of them, right? So in a way, you almost just have to, again, like access that internal intelligence, right? And just sort of know, it's like walking away from that is perfect because it's like, why even waste your energy on that? Instead, I would just walk away and say, or if there's a colleague or that person at work or somebody that is always like in your stuff or against you, or you feel like it's probably because they're insecure or afraid of something, they're threatened by you, or they have other issues. So I would just say, God bless. I really hope that this person, I sort of feel sorry for this person, and really just don't waste your energy on it, and just be confident in your internal thing. I think this whole question about like why are men more confident than women, are they really? I mean, come on, are they really, like, what are, and it's raising the sun right now, and it's a big topic at She Summit this year, and I call it, like, there's a new masculinity movement that is starting. My friend Simon runs Fatherly, my friend Jeff Myers just wrote a book called The Future of Men, The Future of Masculinity. Women have always, women have a million resources. We have Elevate, we have She Summit, we have all these women sharing vulnerable stories. What do guys have? Like, men in many ways have their insecurities, and they are, they're fighting, like, how much money are they bringing to the table? What's their title, right? Guys were raised also with, like, I need to be a man, right? And gender norms are also changing. There's more breadwinning moms, women are out earning men. So we're living in a really unique time, in terms of how we compare ourselves to men. I think we need to be more inclusive of men and involve them and invite them into these conversations and also hear what they're struggling with, because we can't, it's not like the women's movement is anti-men. We need to figure out how to coexist together so that a successful organization, company, society is when a family is when both genders thrive. And I'm actually very concerned about our generation of young boys, and just young men. So it's just a lens that I just want to sort of put on everybody, and really, like, if there is that guy that, or somebody that is challenging, just try to think of it from, it's a more complex situation than what we see on the outside.
Can I bounce back real quick? Because anyone had that kind of similar experience with not being politician necessarily, but that kind of like upfront. The other way that I reframed it was that I did something badass enough to really unsettle him, right? That then puts the power back in your court. You stood up for something, you were strong enough, you were opinionated enough that it rattled him. And I think that could be empowering.
And the women in sports, I call them trolls. Right?
Yeah.
We have the trolls, sadly. I think that's it, but I think the panel will be around for any further questions maybe before we leave. But before we do conclude, I just want to say thank you hugely to the wonderful women on this panel. Kicking things off today, I am an active member of Elevate. I have to say, I do lean on them. Hashtag this is not an ad, but I do lean on them for a lot in terms of, I helped kick off their podcast, which is so great. We have so many inspiring and powerful women telling their stories. So do look for that. I know they're having a special on memberships right now. The code is Invest in Yourself, which is a theme that came up, I think, organically throughout. Again, hashtag that was not wrong either. So please do look in. So thank you so much for hosting everything, and thank you all for being such a great audience. We appreciate it.
Can I plug in something? Yes. So I just wanted to also add to that. So She Summit, our global women's empowerment conference, Kelly Clarkson, Sally Project. We have NFL former Wade Davis, who's in the He for She UN Women campaign. Anyway, you're very own lady, yours truly, Alysia. Amazing speakers this year. Anyway, October 28th and 29th, we have a 20% promo code. The code is Killer Confidence, and it kicks off 9 p.m. tonight and runs for 48 hours. So 20% off the tickets, and we are rarely running any deals on it. So Katie on my team is here if you want to ask her any questions, and she's in the front row. That's my mom. Thank you so much.
And my last pitch too. I don't know how long my movie's going to be in the theaters. Like, it's kind of a really big deal when an indie movie, written, directed, starring, produced by women with 3 female leads, is in the movie theater at all. And it's been in the movie theater for over 2 months now. But I think this might be the last weekend, unless like an outpouring of support happens. So please go see it this weekend if you can, because it's so important to support female-driven content.
What's the name again?
Equity. Sony Picture Classics. It's at the Angelica and at the Lincoln Plaza. So if you're downtown or uptown, you got a theater.
And LA.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.